Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another live stream. Thank you so much for everyone who's been waiting for me, and welcome to everyone new. As usual, with our live stream, we will begin with a topic that I want to discuss with you about, really, and then I will open up the space for all of you for your input or any questions as well. For all of those new to my live stream, I do them regularly where I discuss wide variety of things, really. Obviously, we talk a lot about Palestine, the situation, any updates, because we have to. It's not like, the truth is readily available out there. No, it's not. But we also talk about other stuff too. And it's important for me, really, to stay in communication uh, with the community, open the space up for you so you can have a platform too. One of the main problems that we have nowadays is that there's so much manipulation. Number one, there's so much manipulation. And you're not getting the full image. And they're trying to suppress all of the voices. They're trying to suppress everyone. One alarming thing that I've been witnessing lately is people who are calling these brave and wonderful students with their encampments, they're labeling them now as terrorists. Even the students who sacrifice everything for a very moral thing, a cause of human rights, people suffering. It's more important than what you do, standing up against wrong things, not just wrong things. You're talking about a genocide. And now they're labeling them campus terror, they'll call it. And some of these people, what do they establish their opinions on? A negligible incident that would happen that could be also taken out of context. Someone preventing someone from going into the campus, again, could be taken out of context. And again, let's say something wrong happens in an encampment or in a protest. Do you label the whole movement? Do you label everything to do with it? It's like in the early days when you started having these pro-human rights marches, pro-truth marches, not just pro-Palestine marches. People were desperate to find anyone doing something wrong so that they can label everything and call it a hate march. You had millions of people going in, they'll focus on one person, two people, whatever, something. What is that? It's a desperate attempt, and they'll ignore the real terrorism. Now, obviously, when you do that, you're covering up for the criminal, okay? Going against someone who pushes for and stands for the truth or what's right or the moral thing helps the criminal. Being quiet helps the criminal. It enables them to continue because it labels the people who are doing good and gives them a bad label, gives them a bad image. And that's what they're interested in. But that's yet another sign of desperation, in my opinion. And I'm not sure how many people are still fooled by that. Look, obviously, many people will be fooled till the end of days. But I'm not sure, I'm not sure that these people are a big number. I'm not sure if we're talking about masses of numbers of people. And really and truly, I do feel like this is a desperate attempt. This is a very desperate attempt because it all starts with the mindset, with the legitimization, with the brainwashing, with the propaganda, with the indoctrination. Once that falls, what else do you rely on? Fear, again, fear, the fear factor, terror equals fear. They use the word terror to label anyone doing good on this earth, to instill fear. We can't convince you with a rational debate, okay? I can't sit and talk to you before you label me and I label you. Or we can't just have a normal discussion. What do? Fear. And some people would still be fooled by that. Because fear as an emotion is very strong. You know, some people say fear is stronger than love. And it's one of the easiest things to control people with. And I always said that from the beginning, even when it was the early days, you know, when it was difficult to justify, you know, what the resistance is doing. But we were seeing all through the propaganda, right? And things started to unravel and become evident after the 7th of October, with Israel massacring its people, them shooting at people in masses, imprisoning them. Now there are people in forced hospitalization that I spoke to you about previously, who survived the 7th of October so that they don't release further information even, and selling this whole pseudo-narrative. It's as if the package was already there and it was published. It was published. Not to say that everything was orchestrated or organized to the T, but there was some level of knowledge and there was a level of preparation as well, especially seeing as it's still ongoing now. Much of it doesn't make sense. I mean, even if you look at it from an Israeli perspective, much of it does not make sense for Israel's sake, for Zionist supremacist Israel's sake. Does not make sense. What kind of sense does it make to push and go ahead and commit a genocide and boast about it and lose everyone who used to support you, at least the majority of them? Now it's safe to say it's the majority of them. People did a 180 several weeks into this. Now more and more people are changing position. And it's an attempt of desperation. I just wanted to mention that because I came across someone who was criticizing the encampments, and I just thought that it's important to share that with you. And I published 2 videos earlier on. Was it 2 or 1? One. I have another one coming. Where I spoke about the ultimatum. You can go ahead and watch it after the live stream, where I spoke about the ultimatum that the war cabinet member Benny Gantz is giving to Benjamin Netanyahu, and giving him 20 days. You have until the 8th of June to come up with a solution, a vision to what's happening in Gaza. Otherwise, I'm out of the government. Now, this person, and I said that previously, he's not better than Netanyahu. As a matter of fact, there is no realistic good alternative to Benjamin Netanyahu. And I have another video coming up later on about the prisoners and what's happening with Marwan al-Barghouthi, which is very important. So you can go ahead and watch it later on. But I might also post another video about the talk that we're having about the day after. And you know me, I said it before, this day after that they've been talking about. The only day after we should be speaking about is the day after Israel, not the day after Gaza. But I'll leave that to the coming video, and I'll share my thoughts on that as well. What I wanted to discuss with you this evening, and obviously then I'll open the space up for all of you. And again, greetings for everyone, greeting as well, and joining us as and when. Thank you very much and welcome. Is Lebanon, okay. So Lebanon started participating on the 8th of October. You see, you know people's true colors in these situations by their positions, by their immediate positions as well. Many people who have been following the Palestinian cause for very long knew it from the get-go, and they had the right position. Many others did not. Some to this day fall into the trap of condemnation, condemning the Palestinian resistance, and also buying the false pseudo-narrative when it comes to the 7th of October. And on top of all of that, what they're not realizing is that they are playing into the hands of the genocidal people, the genocide supporters. And I said it before and I'll say it again. What does it mean? What does it mean if you support a certain cause, but you don't support the action to defend it? What does that mean? Does that mean you should be a beggar? That's one question. Secondly, if we were to assume that you're happy with the low and immoral position of being a beggar, it takes a low human being to be a beggar. Decent people with self-respect, they're not beggars. They'll be struggling, but they'll find something to do. They will be in the pits of difficulty in this life, and they will find a way to get out of it. They don't beg. They do not beg. That's people who have dignity and self-respect. Clearly, some people don't, and they're happy with the fact that, certain people need to be beggars, relying on foreign aid and people helping them, instead of supporting their right to be equal and treated equally to other people. You see, this is where many people fall into this trap. Let's move on to the subject. And before I go in, thank you so much. Abdul Rahman is saying, Dear Mahmoud, thank you for your reporting. Great work. Allah ya'tik al-afi. Allah ya'afik, and thank you so much for your super thanks. I really appreciate it. And also Mary and Tim, thank you so much for your super thanks. I really appreciate your kindness, your generosity and support, and anyone else as well, everyone, just anyone viewing and anyone subscribing and anyone saying good words. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate you. And if I don't show enough appreciation, then I'm sorry. I apologize. But I really appreciate you. And throughout this, the past 6 months, I got to know so much good. I got to know so many good people. So many lovely people, beautiful human beings from everywhere in the world. And that makes me more hopeful. Not that I wasn't hopeful, I always have hope. But seeing people from everywhere, seeing all of those people in the streets, people sacrificing, people saying good things, and supporting what's right despite all of the terrorism that they face. That's real terrorism. When they terrorize you to think in a certain way, instill fear in you so that you don't support someone and make you apathetic. And so many people don't fall for that. And these are the human beings and the people that give hope to humanity as a whole. They give hope to humanity as a whole because they can see past the terrorism. They can see past the manipulation, past the pressure, and in many cases, physical pressure. And in the most severe cases in Gaza, a genocide. So obviously, much love and respect to all of you, and thank you so much. The day in Lebanon, the day after in Lebanon, okay, we're having two simultaneous the day after, instead of talking about the day after Israel and boycotting this country and implementing sanctions and forcing them to end the regime of religious and ethnic supremacy and finally implement equality. Lebanon. Hezbollah has been conducting attacks on Israel that are unprecedented. Hezbollah moved the battle to Israeli territories. I was quoting a previous IDF general the other day, someone senior in the Israeli military establishment, who said that they created a new equation. We were used to playing in, enemy territory. But now they changed it, Hezbollah. They're destroying. They're destroying locations in Israel. They're targeting with very sophisticated levels IDF bases, soldier gatherings, command bases. And they forced over 90,000 settlers out of their homes. Something that's usually reserved for Israel. But you see, this is where things are changing. And Israel is starting to taste some of its own medicine. Not to the level that they inflict on other people. No, it's not even close. If there was someone to intimidate them to that level, they wouldn't have been doing what they're doing in Gaza. Don't get that wrong. But you have a genocidal support for them from the genocide cartel, Western powers, primarily obviously the US and its poodle continent, Europe, or most of the EU states, so no one can get offended. And when I say that, I mean powers, not people, so don't get me wrong. And Arab neighbors of Israel sitting there, enjoying everything, some of them without saying anything, and even supporting Israel and pushing them. Hezbollah is creating a new equation, and Israel is deterred. The question is, are they doing it to pacify Hezbollah, to show them that we are a little bit intimidated before something, or are they genuinely intimidated? So there was an article published in J-Post, actually, the Jerusalem Post, about Gallant. He went to the north. Yoav Gallant, he went to the north. You can consider Yoav Gallant to be the leader of Golani, or Division 36, in which Golani plays a big role in, okay? He even, like I said, he threatened Benjamin Netanyahu with the Golani Brigade, because these people are less willing to fight for Benjamin Netanyahu, to say the least. He went to the north. He said, we didn't come here for nothing. Prepare for every possibility. We did not come here for nothing. Prepare for every possibility. Following several days of heavy bombardment from the north, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant visited the IDF troops stationed in the north and along the Lebanon border, according to a statement on Friday. Gallant held a situation assessment with the Northern Command Commander, Major General Ori Gordin, as well as the General Staff. Gallant called for increased vigilance in the face of the threat from Hezbollah and increased intelligence operations in southern Lebanon. He should have said increased intelligence and attacks in northern Israel. What are you doing to Lebanon? You're doing nothing. They're the ones who are going 50, 60, 70 kilometers into Israeli territories, paralyzing Israel's northern part. He also tore down Kiryat Shmone, which suffered persistent attacks from Lebanon since the start of the war, expressed his appreciation for the artillery brigade stationed in the north. And he said, maintain vigilance. He told the troops, be patient and vigilant. Operations against Hezbollah would begin. People explained to me, he said, with maps and examples, some of them very old and experienced people who said, We wouldn't do anything. I told them, wait, we will. He continued, this morning we were hit. At the beginning of the week, we eliminated one of the senior commanders of Hezbollah in the western sector. And I tell you, I'm not coming here for nothing. We must prepare and consider that anything can happen. We will return the residents of the north to their homes. We want to exhaust every chance to do it by agreement because we know that war costs and we prefer to avoid it. That's called deterrence. That is called deterrence. If we come to this conclusion, we will act simply because we have to take care of our citizens. Now, obviously, they will not highlight the level of intimidation that's happening in Israel. Hezbollah is conducting operations at a quality and quantity unheard of and unseen before. And Israel, whether it decides to go to Lebanon for a full-scale war or not, has been defeated by Hezbollah. Why? Why defeated by Hezbollah? Similarly to why they were defeated by the Palestinian resistance. You calculate the success, you measure the success of a military operation by the military objectives. Were they achieved or not? If they have been achieved, good, you won or you had success. If they haven't been achieved, you haven't achieved success. What does that mean? You lost. You lost, you were defeated. Especially when you want to talk about an army that's supported by the world's biggest superpower against a group of people who have basic, okay, now it's getting more than basic to be fair, equipment, and mostly backed by unbelievable levels of bravery and will and faith and patience as well. That was the main article that I wanted to highlight for you. I personally think they're incapable of conducting an all-out war in Lebanon. What they could do is massacre people like they did in Gaza. They can't defeat the resistance. They can't touch them. If they haven't touched the resistance in Gaza for the past 8 months almost, and they are conducting operations at a much more consistent and intense level than before, how can you translate that? How can you say anything about Israel and its success? You see, part of the reason we talk about what happens constantly in Gaza, and in terms of the resistance at least, is to show people where things are going and what's actually happening. Because obviously we're not getting that. A few people might talk about it here and there, but it's important to show what's happening to try and understand what's coming. And when you're listening to the mainstream pseudo-narrative and manipulation propaganda, you need to read between the lines and compare that to the evidence that you're getting from Gaza. Israel can succeed in massacring people. They have succeeded, and they succeed in massacring people to obtain or hope to obtain military objectives or political goals. It was successful in 1948 in the Nakba. People weren't expecting it. They didn't know what's coming. They were promised to come back after the war. Little they knew the level of viciousness, of depravity, of evil of these people. Now they know. And it starts with you knowing. Once you know the people who you're dealing with, you know what you need to do. Then you're talking about the military capability. Okay, which division do we have in Lebanon? We have Division 36, consisting of Golani. Golani, one of the oldest brigades in the IDF, formed out of what? Out of the terrorist organizations, the Haganah and what have you, before the establishment of Israel. They have the experience in Lebanon, but they're the most experienced division in Israel and the oldest one. Where did they come from now, recently? They withdrew from Gaza, from Khan Yunis. Doing what? Committing a genocide and failing against the Palestinian resistance, a military failure. You didn't dismantle the resistance, you didn't stop the attacks, you failed militarily. So you're going from what we understand as the least equipped part from the axis of resistance or the alliance of the resistance, and you're going to Hezbollah to do what? Exactly. They don't have the military capability to do anything militarily. They will have to reach a certain deal unless someone goes completely insane in Israel and decides to go on genocide in Lebanon, which again will not get them the military results that they want, by the way, but they can say that we massacred this amount of people, we destroyed X amount of, because don't forget, Yoav Gallant, when he went to the Northern Front back in November, and we spoke about it at the time, he said, I send a warning to the citizens of Lebanon. We can do to the citizens of Beirut what we did to the citizens of Gaza. He's not even warning Hezbollah, he's warning the people. To try and instill fear in them. Look, we can massacre you. We can kill your children and women and every innocent thing and bomb your hospitals and every lifeline. But against the resistance, cowards. Can't do anything. So that was the main topic that I want to talk to you about. Let me open the space up for all of you. And again, thank you to Abdul Rahman, and to Marian and Ari Magoo. Thank you for your supers. Thank you to everyone greeting and sending messages. Let's go to the top so we can try and not miss stuff. Oh no, okay. I got a message from Molly saying, going okay for the moment, alhamdulillah, we are still occupying Mahmoud Hall at Melbourne University. Uni tried to threaten us, but police have been chill so far. I salute everyone who's taking action. That's great, you know, so long as everything is peaceful, obviously. And it's so important. Because think about it, even when you talk about the police, okay, you're talking about human beings. If they have a functioning moral compass and they're seeing what's happening and what these people are standing for, they will show sympathy. Obviously, you have some of them who are completely brainwashed, but not all of them. Not all of them. Like, how can you look? How can you explain the shift? It started from really when they got back from wars abroad in the US Army. And now they're being more and more vocal. But how can you explain the shift within the armed forces, let alone the police? If you're talking about people from within the armed forces changing their mind, standing up, many of them resigning, all of that is changing. And you have the same thing with the police force as well. Anyone who's seeing what's happening, what these people are protesting for, think, no, I sympathize with them. Talal Mansour is saying, can you explain the collaboration between Hamas and Hezbollah with coordination of war attacks on the enemy? Firstly, they have joint operations abroad. Okay? Clearly, throughout this genocide, we have seen certain levels of coordination that were definitely calculated. Because obviously you have a front in the south, you have a front in the north. And each of them establish their operations based on the need of that front. So it's not like everything is coordinated 24/7. No, of course not. And although Hamas technically and the Palestinian resistance, they are active in Lebanon with Hezbollah, all of that is under Hezbollah's authority. Because Hezbollah, well, I wouldn't say authority as if they're dictating, right? But under the monitoring of Hezbollah, they're the ones who are in charge of Lebanon. At least when it comes to the resistance, obviously. However, we have seen coordinated attacks, not only from Lebanon and Gaza, but also from Iraq and Yemen. And we spoke about them many times. So there's a good level of coordination, but I wouldn't say that everything is coordinated all the time, because many of these operations very much depend heavily on what's happening on that front and the need and the tactic that should be used, etc. And that's why, for example, the Palestinian resistance would not release everything. They declare that. They said, we declare some of our operation, and that some is enough to show massive humiliation for Israel, mind you. But they wouldn't publish anything for safety reasons, security, updates on the ground, operations, etc. And the same with Hezbollah. Although Hezbollah are the ones who are, attacking deep into Israel. So I hope that elaborates. And Luna Di Sol, thank you so much for your contribution. Thank you. We had Talal Mansour. That was Talal. And let me see. I hope I didn't miss the earlier ones. I'm going to try and reach there. Why does YouTube do this? Abed is saying, based on everything we have been seeing, I expect this madness to continue. No one is stepping in. It's only been lip service to allow things to continue. I agree with that to a very high extent. As a matter of fact, when I was asked, what do you think this will result to or how it will end, I imagine two scenarios: either an ongoing open war, as it is going now, which can decrease from full-scale war to fighting, but ongoing. In effect, a war of attrition against Israel, or a very temporary, limited de-escalation that will be under an ongoing conflict, much more intense ongoing conflict. Now, Israel used to previously use this as a tactic. And before I continue, by the way, if anyone had posted anything before, if you wouldn't mind posting it again, for some reason I can't access the previous messages. Israel had a strategy of managing the conflict. We manage the conflict. We have an escalation, but we manage it. People talking about Palestinian state, nah, we'll continue with what we're doing. They're fine in terms of the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. They've proved that they are fine with being bribed and having the role of, what? A puppet. What can I say? Look, there are far worse words that you can use. I don't always want to use them. A small, counselor position, stripped of all powers, really, apart from what the occupier wants them to do. They've been doing that for 30 years, so Israel felt like they could do that with Hamas and Gaza too. They couldn't. They could not. So with the level of global awareness now, it's exceptionally difficult for Israel to go back to those days. As a matter of fact, I think it's almost impossible for them to go back to where they were on the 6th of October. If anyone in Israel could click a button to go back to the 6th of October, they'll click it now. They cannot. And they will not, most likely. And this will be an ongoing thing up until we get the liberation of the Palestinian people. Up until the Palestinian people have equal rights between the Jordan River to the sea. Up until the Palestinian refugees return to their homes that they were expelled from in 1948 and 1967. Their homes. Up until we have justice. Up until we have a system in place that dismantles the regime of national, religious, and ethnic supremacy. It will not stop. Helen Gabra saying, we appreciate you too, Mahmoud. Thank you. I assume that was a response to my previous message. Thank you. Even though we don't see the community you built, it feels great welcoming around the Palestinian cause. My life has been moved a great deal since October the 7th. Yeah, it's absolutely. And firstly, thank you for that. And many people feel the same. And again, likewise from myself too. Thank you for that. Zelda's message went off for some reason. Zelda asked, will they ban Al Jazeera in the West Bank? They're still operating from the West Bank and reporting on Israeli matters in the West Bank. And Israel declared that they want to hunt them down there. Now, they're probably delaying it for a bit. They probably don't want to increase tensions too much, because it started with Al Mayadeen, by the way. Then it went to Al Jazeera. That's, we're talking about Israel. And they declared that they want to get rid of them everywhere, between the Jordan River to the sea. But obviously that would be a difficult task. However, they're after them. They just killed a new journalist today. Over 150 so far. How many did they kill? And Bonnie asked, is it possible that the Gaza war can last for years? Yes, I mean, I don't think anyone imagined it would last for 7-8 months. It didn't make any sense for Israel, by the way. And it could potentially last for years, yes. But all that would do is, I mean, look, Israel is in a lose-lose situation regardless. Whether it continues or it temporarily stops, it's in a lose-lose situation. And they will not achieve peace. They will not achieve security. They will not prosper unless the Palestinian people get their rights. And El Karaki, thank you for your super. You said, hello, brother, God bless you. Do you know any other way to send money to those in Gaza directly? I've ran into issues sending a brother in Rafah. The best way is to have direct support to organizations who operate in your local area, as in your country. Okay? Read up about them, make sure that they're legit, that they're registered, see their operations, monitor their transparency. And there are many good organizations and charities. And I can't recommend one of them. I tried to, by the way, collaborate with one of them that'll be directly for Gaza, but that didn't work out on my YouTube channel. But I always tell people, if you want to support people in Gaza, the best way is to support them through a verified, legit organization that you're comfortable with, that is legit, a registered charity, you know their operations, that they have a good level of transparency, and there are plenty of them. Chocolate Pudding, thank you so much for your super thanks. He said, Mahmoud, can you please talk about the life of Palestinians with Israeli citizenship? I know people who use that to justify to call it a democracy. How can they call it democracy? Have you seen any protests? When there used to be escalations with Gaza, when I was there, I used to protest and raise the Palestinian flag. We used to get imprisoned, beaten sometimes, but here you could protest. Is there anyone protesting now? No. Why? Is it because you live in a democracy? It's because they banned them from day one. Massive draconian measures immediately after the 7th of October. What did they do? And that's live stories from there, by the way. Imprisoning people for liking a post on Facebook. Imprisoning people for sharing a link. Damaging people financially. So if someone showed some sort of solidarity or what have you, let alone like support or justification for the Palestinian resistance, financial trouble, things to do with mortgages, things to do with debit cards, firing them from their job, draconian measures. So levels where many people stopped saying anything. Is that democracy? This is how they define democracy. Why? Because Israel describes itself a Jewish democratic state. Jewish before democratic. Remember that. Now, we know what they mean by they say Jewish. Okay, but this is how they describe themselves. We know they're using Judaism as a front against their own people to manipulate them and easily control them, because the easiest thing to control people with is, your religion. Why? Because we're representing God's will. And can you really argue with God? No, not that much, because he promised us this land, as if God is sitting there as an estate agent. Oh, hello, you have the land. So you will have some Hasbara payroll, people who call themselves the Arab citizens of Israel. They won't say the Palestinian citizens of Israel. Because to Israel, they're Arabs. They're not Palestinian, because they don't recognize anything as Palestinian. They're on Israeli payroll. You'll see some of them on mainstream media, on shows in universities, showing that, Israel is a wonderful state. As someone who was born there and lived there for a long time, I can tell you one thing. Israel is a supremacist, violent apartheid state that runs itself on the basis of ethnocracy and religious supremacy. Now, the argument here is the level. Okay. There's levels of apartheid, you see. The Palestinians who have Israeli citizenship, that's apartheid level number 3. The Palestinians of the West Bank, apartheid level number 2. The Palestinians and that's in Jerusalem as well, by the way, because Jerusalem, they have a special status of a residency, but not the Palestinian Authority and not an Israeli national, by the way. And then you have Gaza, that's apartheid level 1. In all cases, they treat any non-Jewish person in Israel as a Class B and below citizens. Class B and below citizen. There is discrimination within the Jewish community. There's discrimination between Ashkenazi and Mizrahi. There's discrimination against the Orthodox community. There's racism against some of the blacks as well. But with the Palestinians, obviously, they're at the bottom of the list. So, class B, C, D, X, Y, Z, right? So, let no one fool you. And again, look at previous wars and escalations. Palestinian voices inside of Israel are very vocal, extremely vocal. If you were a democracy, why would you ban the raising of a flag? What's so scary about a flag? It always fascinated me. What's scaring you about a flag? To you, they don't exist. It's a made-up flag. Why are you scared of it then? Banning the Palestinian flag. It's because the flag is the victim reminding you that you're a thief and I'm here on my land. And it couldn't get more icky for the supremacist. My God, no. Otherwise, how can you explain it? What's so scary about a flag? Let's say I run a country. Okay, I'm running a country. I'm a president. And I have a group of people who made up this flag. Who cares? Made up a flag. So long as the country is equal and democratic and what have you. But there's no equality. There's no real democracy. There's supremacy. And they're raising the flag. No, we don't like that. We don't like that. And to be fair, I'm not sure how much these Hasbara cockroaches are fooling anyone, really. Again, they're on payroll. They're on Hasbara payroll. They get paid every month. They get their orders from their Zion masters. Ask one of them, did Israel do anything wrong in Gaza? No. Wow. Nothing wrong. Everything is right. Oh. They're not even clever about it. It's not like they would, criticize Israel just to show that, we're not fully with them. Oh, no, they haven't done anything wrong in Gaza. No, there is no genocide. There's Hamas, and they're hiding between the people, and they're in the hospitals, and they're everywhere, and they have ants, and they have bees, and they have flies. Come on. But I think most people are aware of it by now. And that was from chocolate pudding. Chocolate pudding. Who do we have after chocolate pudding? Let's see. Omsi saying, question. Hebrew sources keep saying that their hostages are being held in Egypt. Are they planning a suicidal Sinai? If you wouldn't mind, if you have a source for that, share it with me, because I personally haven't seen that. We heard about talks about tunnels to Egypt, but let me have a quick look. Okay, I mean, there's one website, FDD, Foundation for Defense Democracies, quoting the Israeli narrative. Okay, nearly 700 shafts have been identified in Rafah. That's a massive lie from Israel, number one. And approximately 50 tunnels cross into Egypt. Yeah, I heard that part. But the other part, these tunnels are used by Hamas to supply itself with weapons and ammunition, could potentially be used to smuggle out of Gaza hostage or senior Hamas operatives. Who said that? Attorney Gilad Noam. Okay, they're quoting this person. I heard that officially from Israel, but not the part that says the actual prisoners might be in Gaza. But we did hear about ammunition and what have you, and that's not surprising, by the way, because look, to them Egypt is frustrating them, to say the least. Okay, we all know that neither Egypt nor did anyone else stop a genocide, but some people or some groups or countries contributed to lifting the pressure of Gaza and preventing Israel from accomplishing its mission. One of the countries that prevented Israel from accomplishing its mission is Egypt, and that's why they're frustrated with Egypt. Egypt did not submit to the pressure to open up the borders and take all of the people from Gaza. Egypt did not submit to all of the Israeli proposals before invading Rafah to move the Rafah crossing to an area closer to Israel and Egypt, which is Karm Abu Salim or Kerem Shalom crossing, that has a joint border between Gaza, Egypt, and Israel, so that Israel can have more control. Egypt did not submit to Israeli demands of passing surveillance to Israel from Egyptian territory with regards to any activity there. So they're very frustrated with Egypt. It reached a level where the finance minister in Israel, Bezalel Smotrich, said that Egypt bears liability for the 7th of October because of the tunnel systems with Hamas. Now their row is becoming more intense. Obviously, Egypt started to support the ICJ case. Egypt is becoming more vocal. They're threatening to cut the ties. Egypt de facto went against every single line of the peace treaty with Israel. And that's according to people in the Israeli intelligence establishment. That's not from me. And I quote them and I speak about this. So they're frustrated with Egypt. It's not that they're not. Now, what if they're going to say this more, I mean, this hasn't been the headlines. I haven't seen this as a headline in any of the main Israeli websites or what have you, or news outlets. What we did have is a couple of people from the Israeli military and intelligence establishment saying that Egypt wants us weak. They want us defeated. I posted a video not long ago where I quoted them saying, that Egypt wants us to bleed. Egypt wants us to be hurt by Hamas. They have an interest in keeping Hamas there. Things that are quite true, okay? Because from an Egyptian perspective, they want to keep everything diplomatic and happy-clappy, right? But they have an interest. They know their arch enemy is Israel. Their number one enemy is Israel. All of their military preparation is against Israel. That's why even with the US aid, the US will never sell to the Egyptians what they sell the Israelis. They will always ensure that the Israelis have military superiority. And that's why Egypt started to diversify its military purchasing, equipment, fighter jets, and everything. That's not surprising because they want to potentially legitimize any potential future action. Now, Egypt was aware of the risk previously if they were to take Palestinians into Sinai. And the Egyptian president said it himself. He said that we know what's going to happen. The Palestinians will come and they will most likely not stop attacking Israel. Because what is Israel going to do? Stop the Palestinians from resisting? And what if they attack them from Sinai? Who's responsible? Egypt as a whole, not the Sinai region. Egypt as a country will become a legitimate target to Israel. Then hello and welcome to the Greater Israel Project. From the Nile to the Euphrates. Then if they wanted to use nukes, they can nuke Cairo. And they would. They're genocidal people. Supported by people who are still proud of themselves today for nuking and killing 250,000 people in Japan. So they can do that. Egypt is probably calculating all of that, and they obviously have these massive developments in Egypt and infrastructure, and they were about to join the BRICS, and now they joined them when everything started. They were aware about the fact that any interference could legitimize taking down Egypt as a state. Whether that's justified for the lack of enough action to prevent or severely at least decrease the genocide in Gaza is another debate, but this is a calculation from the Egyptian side. And Luna Disul, thank you so much for your super thanks. Who else do we have? And also Matlas X, thank you so much. Let's see where we reached. Marvin Vergus, question, do you think Ukraine will serve as the new Zio life raft if Israel fails? Did you hear about the Ukrainians create a new Jerusalem out of Ukraine? BlockRock reported. Well, that sounds like a great idea. Look, many of them came from that part. That wasn't Ukraine at the time, it was part of the Soviet Union, but many of them came from that area of Ukraine. Many of them came from Belarus. Many of them came from the Soviet Union, previous Russian Empire. Many of them came from Poland. Many of them are natives of these territories. So you have Zelensky who's supporting you. You have a heritage there and history, and you were born there. Go there. That's for those of you who believe in the supremacy, by the way, because no one has a problem with Jewish people in general, as in Judaism. Judaism was in Palestine before Zionism. There was Judaism, then Christianity, then Islam. Some people converted. We lived peacefully for a very long time, right? Before Zionism. The problem is Zionism came as a neo-colonial, settler, racist, violent, supremacist project and started implementing Jewish supremacy. That's a problem. But those who are not happy, let's say tomorrow we have full equality and we have democracy between the Jordan River to the sea, and everyone receives equal rights like they should, really. And some people are not happy with that. Go to Ukraine. Yeah, you're more than welcome to go to Ukraine, to Zelensky, and go and fight for him as well. See what you're going to achieve. Emily Salter saying, aren't Mizrahim Arab people who are Jewish people from Yemen are Arabs? All of these divisions sound like crazy eugenics proposed by the European Zionists. That's very true to a very large extent, because they didn't want to bring any Jewish Arabs. The European Zionist movement, which is a supremacist movement, they did not want any Jewish Arabs. The reason that they started bringing Jewish Arabs after 1948, it started in the mid-50s, is primarily because Ben Gurion, the first Israeli prime minister, did not believe that they had enough of a demographic upper hand on the Palestinian population. How do we solve it? They had two options: to continue on another ethnic cleansing campaign. That was a little bit more difficult. At the time, they were just, formed as a state. They didn't want trouble. They had another plan, bringing more Jews. They obviously prevented all of the refugees from coming back, so that blocked them. That created a demographic safety net for them, for the Jewish population. Then they thought, okay, how can we bring more Jews? Because don't forget, many of the Jewish people opposed this. They didn't want to go to Israel. And many of them fell for it, and then they fled. They left Israel. They knew what they were about, a genocidal racist state. They said we need to bring Arabs, Arab Jewish people, but we can't allow them to bring in their ethnicity with them. Why? Because we're creating an ethnicity. We're creating the Jewish ethnicity, not the religious Jewish state. Okay. They, as in not religious in the sense of anyone can come, but they can preserve their ethnic or national backgrounds. So they started bringing them and having a process of indoctrination when they come. And many people spoke about it, including Schleim, by the way, spoke about it intensively, and other people as well who are Mizrahi or, from Arab states. They started bringing them. They started conducting terrorist acts in Arab states against the Jewish community to tell them that you're not safe and come to Israel. Israeli Zionist intelligence. Then people started getting scared and going to Israel. When they arrived to Israel, they started brainwashing them. Okay, you're not Arabs. That's number one. You are not Arab. You're Jewish. And if your name, obviously all of them had Arab names, you change your name. Like Benjamin Milikovsky, bin Netanyahu, David Grun, David Ben Gurion, Moshe Sharet, Moshe Shertok, right? These people changed their names. So the Europeans changed their names, let alone the Arabs. And that was very frustrating for many of them. But they had to do it. And many people felt like they had to conceal their identity. That's why they were discriminated against and still do to this day. Not to the level that obviously Palestinians are discriminated against. Fight Back is saying, how is the situation with food, water, fuel, medicine at the moment? Awful. Awful. To recover from this, you need 10 times on a daily basis to recover from this. Apart from the rebuilding and all of that. But the situation is awful. So there are things getting in, but it's awful. Okay, let's see where we are. Talal is also saying that Saudi Arabia has been silent recently amongst other Arab states trying to dove the war on Gaza. Have they reached an end road? Look, were they vocal before? What were they saying before? There's a deal taking place to try and reach a solution with Israel that Israel is spitting on. Like they tore down the peace proposal from the 2000 that was led as an initiative by Saudi Arabia. Prime Minister Ariel Sharon in the 2000, he held it and he ripped it. Peace proposal. And they still suck up to them. Saudi Arabia gathered all Arab states, 2000, said, let's have a solution. Support a Palestinian state. We'll all recognize Israel. Israel will be embraced, right? And we'll have a peace treaty with them. Ariel Sharon ripped it apart. Why? They don't want to give Palestinians anything. What they probably want to give Palestinians is a couple of municipalities, a couple of mayors here and there. So it's not like they've been talking. To the contrary, really, they've been doing the opposite. Being silent, and if not officially, then through their mouthpieces, mainstream media, religious scholars, they've been spewing venom. Matlas X is saying, firstly, thanks for your super. You're saying, what is Turkey really going to do? You see, I have no faith in the talk. Like Erdogan said, okay, what's happening is Gaza's a front to Anatolia, right? And Israel is after. If Israel's after you, what are you doing? Like he said previously in the war, we're willing to fight and enter. It's talk, we haven't seen much. Okay, you diplomatically support, you legitimize some actions here and there, but again, nothing to the level that is required. Whether he's raising the bar up now and changing the tone when it comes to Israel and talking about the military side again, could it be a preparation for something in the future? We don't know. But so far, they haven't taken any significant action to stop the genocide. Uncanny Mountain, thank you for your super. You said the call for government by Israel initiated a referendum. No more parties or politicians occupy capitals in March every October the 14th. I think, look, one thing this sparked is a debate about democracy and the essence of democracy. Do we live in a democracy or do we not live in a democracy? Some people are using this argument to say that democracy altogether is a failure. However, I disagree with that notion. Why? Because if you want to say that this specific ideology or way of ruling is a complete failure based on the misuse and manipulation that's been happening in many cases, then you would need to also consider other things as failures that you might support. Okay? So let's say someone wants to say, I don't know, communism is the solution or socialism. What, did we have great examples with the Soviet Union, for example, and people waiting in lines to get milk for their children, right? Or other examples? It creates a debate. Okay, what should happen? A review, at least a review, really. Okay, we call ourselves a democracy. What does a democracy mean? Power to the people, basic, very basic. Power to the people. The people must have a right to choose who governs them in what way and choose what happens with them and with the fate of their country and nation and people. Has that been happening in countries that call themselves democratic? No. Why? Because the people who are in power, they want to stay in power. And the people who are in power are not really in power. There's money. There's money abusing and controlling everything. Controlling the media, controlling the politicians. You have the blackmailing networks. You have the threats, the undercover threats, the state within a state. You have a big thing. But if you at least have a review as to how democracy is being implemented now, you will find a lot of flaws. A lot of flaws. And that's why governments usually always go against democratic values. As a matter of fact, governments in many cases, I'm not talking about like all of many of them, many governments, not only do they go against democracy and introduce undemocratic laws, they go against the law itself. Otherwise, how can you explain certain people who have the means, the capacity, the mental power to go against a country and funds and perseverance, and then they win in a court case? What, did the government not know the law? What, do they not know the law? Of course they do. But they think they're above it. They think they can twist it. Think they can bribe people. And they'll work to change the law. And usually they fail when there's public interference, when democracy starts to actually reveal itself by the people. bottom up, not top down. And in any modern state, I don't think that should be the case. I personally think it should be way easier, to say the least, to have access to genuine democracy or a democratic action or democratic systems and institutions. The truth of the matter is we don't really live under democratic countries. They have essences of democracy. They have levels of democracy. There's a level of freedom of speech. And I'm not saying everything needs to be absolute. There is no absolutism or total justice or what have you. But what we've seen in the last 7-8 months, and we've seen throughout many years, but to many people it's become more evident since the genocide, is that we cannot really see democracy in action. When you have millions on the street calling their governments to do something and they're not being listened to, as a matter of fact, they're being intimidated, imprisoned, terrorized. What is that? And Marvin Vergus, thank you for your super thanks. You gave me a tip for an interview. Thank you for that. Who else do we have here? Let's see. Okay, well, I'll end it with that. And again, I'm sorry if I missed any of the comments, because I keep missing them, and comments keep going back up. But like I said, I'm here with you hopefully regularly. But I'll end it with Ashley Shahada saying, as an American, I can tell you that we do not have democracy. We, the people, are fighting fascism. If we don't stop our corrupt leaders, it will be our demise. I agree with that to a very large extent. And that's the case not only in the United States, by the way, that's the case in many other countries too. Countries that call themselves enlightened talk about democracy and human rights. All of that is a facade, is a front. And we'll end it there. Thank you so much for everyone who joined me tonight. Thank you so much for anyone who sent super thanks. Abdul Rahman, Marian, Ari, Luna Di Sol, El Karaki, Chocolate Pudding, Matlas X, Uncanny Mountain, and Marvin. And thank you to all of our members and moderators and subscribers and viewers. And again, I apologize if I do miss any of your comments. Again, I'm hopefully here regularly. I had a couple of videos. You can go ahead and watch them. Might have another one later on. Apart from that, thanks again. And I will hopefully see you soon in the next video. Good night and peace on all of you.